Today's subject could be termed safe disengagements, perhaps also known as stranger danger, or perhaps more professionally called managing unknown subjects. And who better than John Farnam to advise about disengagement before contact and how to discourage predators by just being too much work standing between them and their goal. For the few who may not know him, John Farnam is one of the longest-serving instructors in military, law enforcement, and private citizens training, starting in the 1960s as a young Marine officer, and since then teaching under the imprimatur of Defense Training International, influencing thousands of soldiers, police, and private citizens. I met John and his wife Vicki about 3 decades ago when I became their student. It's been that long, and since then they have influenced my thinking ever since. John serves on the Network Advisory Board, for which we are grateful, and I never miss the chance to pick his brain on emerging threats and the tactics that we need to counter them. At the foundational level, John, we recognize the need to stay out of the control of people we don't know.
Correct.
And criminals use subtle approaches to get inside of our boundaries, and so I think that those are the two opposing forces. The first, often characterized by requests for change or time or cigarettes, and they're so common that you've taught DTI students and me a series of standard responses called tape loops. And I think that there's much to be learned there.
Yes.
Hopefully we can talk about that and maybe even demonstrate it a little bit today.
Well,
It'd
maybe.
be kind of fun. So what do you commonly say in reaction to that kind of approach? Do you have the time, buddy? Hey, have you got a match, buddy? What do you commonly say?
I think the important thing is you don't engage in a conversation.
Yes.
You don't answer questions. What you want to do is disengage and separate as quickly as possible. When possible, never stop moving. When you are moving and the person approaches you, never stop moving there. One of the tactics is to get you stopped, and so they can start a conversation. So when possible, keep moving, or when you're not moving, start moving away. As a general statement, when the fight comes to you through no invitation of your own, and you take care of business in some kind of reasonable way, generally you're on pretty firm ground from a legal perspective. The problem is when you go to the fight, when you inject yourself into a circumstance in which you were not otherwise involved. That becomes a problem. You know, our colleague Andrew Branca talks about innocence and imminence, and the others are proportionality and reasonableness. And the last one, probably the most important, is avoidance. When you get involved in a lethal force incident at 1:30 in the morning on the sidewalk in front of the Drunken Monkey Bar, how much sympathy do you think you're going to get from a jury? Now, that's not illegal. You can be there if you want. I think we spend too much time worrying about what's legal, what's right, what's moral. We have to start thinking about what's smart.
Yes.
And what represents your best interests. As you know, when I start a class, I say we have 2 goals here in this class. Goal number 1 is that we all die of old age. And goal number 2 is that we don't spend a large portion of our adult life in a penitentiary.
Yes.
Of course, in the law, we also have the civil end of the law. I'm a good deal less worried about that than I am the criminal end. So getting back to your question, I must be running for president. I carefully avoid your questions here. I think instead of trying to make this up as you go along, you just have standard tape loops.
Okay.
The one I usually use and one I recommend to students is it's very simple. We assume what we call the interview stance. You put your hands in front of you just to establish standoff distance, as if to say you're close enough. And then we say something like, I'm sorry, sir, I can't help you.
What do you mean? You can't? Yeah. You look like a nice fella. And he keeps coming.
Well, and then we have to escalate probably verbally in that case. But I tell you, my students and I and family members have used this many times, and I'd say 95% of the time that suffices. The average panhandler, under the right circumstances, may be very dangerous. On the other hand, they're not going to spend a lot of time on a dry hole. Yes. That's oil prospecting parlance. Right. When it's obvious they're not likely to get anywhere, they're going to quickly go on to the next person.
Yes.
They know that they're going to get a successful hit in 1 out of 20, something like that. Okay. Well, the less time they spend on non-productive contacts probably is better for them, better for us, better for them. We have an expression in the law enforcement business that goes like this: courteous to everyone, friendly to no one. Courteous to everyone, friendly to no one. I don't think being insulting or rude is ever going to be in your best interest. I don't think that is going to be something that's going to produce a result you want. For example, when people approach in a circumstance like this, and you say something like, "Why don't you get a job, asshole?" Well, okay, and then bad things happen after that. Well, some prosecutor looking at all this is going to say, well, you may not have started it, but you aggravated it. You made it worse.
Yeah, you ramped it up.
And prosecutors don't like that. What is in your best interest is to courteously but aggressively disengage. I'm sorry, sir, I cannot help you. You have a nice day.
And in that scenario, you're kind of imagining a man that maybe is a little bit alarmed, but sometimes the approach is a little more subtle. And maybe a woman comes up to you while you're pumping your gas and says, "Hey, I'm stranded.
Right.
Can you help buy some gas so I can get home? Or can you help me buy some food for all these kids?" What do you say? What distances do you try to maintain? To what extremes will you go to disengage?
Well, you have to do whatever necessary, because the longer this goes on, the more dangerous it gets. And as you say, a lot of times they will use decoys instead of some industrial-sized jamoke. Some good-looking young gal comes up to me. Wow, good-looking women find aging males irresistible. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sure she was just couldn't resist me. The fact is, it's a scam, and you have to, again, courteous to everyone, friendly to no one. You have to courteously disengage. I'm sorry, I just can't help you. You have a nice day, and keep your distance, and try to stay away. But I don't want to say anything that some prosecutor later on is going to say, well, you started a fight.
Yeah.
You insulted them, or you said something very unkind or disparaging or something like that. It's not illegal. You can say anything you want. What's in your best interest, the smart thing to do, is to disengage and separate. Now, when we're in the 5% of the time that is unsuccessful, you're probably going to have to escalate verbally. That would be the next step, assuming you have time. Where you'd go from I can't help you to get away from me, but very emphatic, as loud as you can say it. Get away from me. Once again, no threats, or I'm going to do something terrible. Just get away from me.
Right.
Or back off, or something like that. That would be a verbal escalation.
Yes.
And normally when you do that, they're a little taken aback, and you can take that advantage of that to move out. And when that is unsuccessful, we're probably into OC.
Okay.
Or if you can't get somebody out of your face. If you carry a can of OC, which we all do, the one I've got on myself right now, this is made by a company called Fox, who I think they now are part of Sabre.
Could be. Yeah, both good names, though.
This is a personal size dispenser. It goes maybe about that far, and it has I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds of spray. I've never needed more than a half second. And you spray them in the face. The face is the only target that makes sense.
I agree.
And it takes your breath away. And it burns, and it distracts them. You know, they got other things to think about now. And while they're doing that, you separate.
Yes.
You committed a battery, of course, and so once you get a safe distance away, you'll probably want to call the police.
Good.
But they're not going to die. There's no permanent injury. It's unpleasant, you know. We've both been sprayed, you know.
Multiple
so
times.
it's unpleasant, but it's certainly not life-threatening. Nor does it produce any kind of permanent disfiguration or damage.
Well, that's my excuse why I look the way I look.
Now, another thing that falls in that same category, especially in the late hours, is a flashlight.
Yes.
We should all carry what we call a tactical flashlight.
Flashlight check.
Yeah, the various brands. This happens to be a Phoenix, and it's very good. But Streamlight, PowerTac, Olight. I hate to do this because I forget someone, you know. But Surefire, they all make something very similar.
Yes.
And a tactical flashlight is in excess. Another one. This is made by First Light. This is one I like in particular. They're all in excess of 500 lumens. And it has a paralytic effect. It's very temporary, but you can hit someone in the face with a light. I've done it many times. You know, when we go to the SHOT Show in Las Vegas, you know, you go to restaurants after dark. Your parking lots are full of these people, and they approach you. And I usually do a verbal escalation, you know, but I'll have this in my hand and I'll hit them in the face, and they'll be like that. They put their hands up so I can see what's in their hands, and they can't see. All they can see is orange balls for the next 5 minutes. And I can say, "You have a nice day, sir." And we go in a restaurant. Nobody gets hurt. No need to call the police, and because there's no real what could be described as a battery,
right.
And no one gets hurt, and that's always the best outcome. You know, we separate and no one gets hurt. That is the definition of a good outcome.
Indeed.
Now, we ought to say that I don't make it a habit of going places where this becomes necessary. My life could be described as, I suppose, a colossal bore. But at my age, you know, sexy nightclubs and places like that, I have no interest in any of that. If I were young and good looking, like you,
Thank you.
sure. And I have students in that time of their life, and
Right,
I tell them,
30-year-olds.
you know, don't go to stupid places, don't associate with stupid people, don't do stupid things. Be in bed by 10 o'clock, you know,
Yes.
have a normal appearance, and don't fail the attitude test. That is the, you know, that's the 6 things we emphasize. Well, but you know, I kind of like to meet good-looking women, and I kind of like to have a drink now and then. And, you know, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, when I was your age, I would, you know, probably would have said the same thing.
Yeah.
And then I add, my goal is to get you to live long enough for you to get to my age. Because back in the 60s, the 1960s, if you're wondering, this was a lot less dangerous than it is today.
Yes.
Today, unknown contacts, as we describe them, are a good deal more dangerous than they would back then. And so I try to emphasize, if you expect to live to get my age, then we need to start thinking about places we go, people we associate with, and when unpleasantness comes our way, how to disengage and separate politely but aggressively. We all carry guns around, and I've got my trump card right here. I'm not worried about losing the fight. But a lethal force incident in which I'm involved and in which I prevail, and that's all wonderful. I'm still alive, I suppose. That's nice. But it's going to be very, you know, we all know this. It's going to be very expensive, no matter what the circumstances were. You can expect to be looked at very critically by prosecutors. You can expect to have your Facebook page and everything else you publish looked at for threats and unpleasant comments. One of the advice I have for all my police students: don't get involved in a shooting during election year. Which we're in now.
You're most likely to.
Yeah, there's a lot of political
Yes.
pressure
Yes, there
on
is.
these incidents, and if you look at the Zimmerman incident and the Rittenhouse incident and all that, there's a lot of political pressure to prosecute where maybe there's no merit to the case.
Right.
And so you might find yourself immersed in something like that.
Right. Right.
Anyway, the bottom line is it can be very expensive. Number one, it's going to be emotionally traumatic. Your body and your mind are going to react in really a normal way to an incident like this, and it'll be part of you for the rest of your life.
Many times families don't survive that. You
Yes.
see divorces, you see separated families.
Yep, all the time.
It cascades out.
In fact, in my police classes, when we have a young patrolman out there, been working for a couple of years, involved in a fatal shooting, 9 times out of 10, a year later, he's gone.
Yeah.
He's out of law enforcement.
Out of the
He's doing something else.
Well, it's just really brutal.
Yeah, it is, and it has to do with our society. I remember, 50 years ago, if you wanted to be a chief of police of a major metro area, to be considered for that job, you had to have been involved in several fatal shootings.
Is that right?
They wanted to know you weren't afraid to pull the trigger. You want to be chief of police? We want to know you can pull the trigger. Today, a fatal shooting is a career ender. It's gone.
Yeah.
You're gone.
Yeah.
And it's really a shame because it's not anybody's fault. We're not doing anything different. It's just the way society has looked upon this, for better or for worse. And down here at the peon level, where we all live, we have no influence on any of this. What I have to do as an instructor, instead of saying, "Oh, I wish things were different," I wish rainwater was beer. Here are the things you need to know. If you want to, 1, die of old age, and number 2, stay out of penitentiaries.
Exactly.
This is what's in your best interest. And as I tell my students, I'm not so much interested in the moral thing or the right thing, nor even the legal thing. I'm interested in the smart thing.
Right.
What represents your best interest?
Yeah.
And when something like this goes down, as you've heard me say before, I tell my students, the one question you need to ask yourself, just right at the top, first question you ask yourself is, what can I do to keep from getting hurt? What can I do to keep from getting hurt? That should be the first question you ask yourself. Now, contrasting as a police officer, sworn officer, the question he or she has to ask themselves is, what must I do to fulfill my duty? I took an oath.
Yes.
I will perform my duty, though I may die. You want to sign up? This is serious business.
Yeah.
And you have to think about that when you become a police officer. And you are going to get paid to confront dangerous people.
Right.
Now, you're not functioning as a police officer. You're not a police officer. You have no obligation for any of that. You don't need to confront dangerous people. You don't need to inject yourself into circumstances in which you're otherwise not involved. And that's what's going to represent your best interest. But of course, after saying this, I will always have a student or two, as you have, who will raise their hand and say, well, I get it. I get what you're saying, absolutely true. But when I see something terrible happen, in which I'm not involved otherwise, my conscience will not permit me to remain silent.
Yeah.
And my response is, God bless you, bud. I think that's great. I'm not up here to tell you what to do. I'm here to tell you what's going to happen when you do. Here's what you can expect. What you're going to do is going to result from a conversation you have with your own conscience.
And it would be good if you had thought it through ahead of time.
Ahead of time,
so
right.
that conversation isn't happening when
Right.
the guy's rushing at you.
Thank you. And as you've heard me say in classes, particularly my police students, no matter what level of bravery and courage and good judgment you display, don't expect to be thanked.
Yeah.
Don't expect anyone to think you're wonderful. Do expect endless criticism. All kinds of people saying you could have done it differently and all that. Yeah. Expect it, don't become a victim of it.
Yeah. So let's turn this back a little bit. And, you know, we've talked a lot about talking to people, and we've talked a lot about people talking to us.
Yes.
Hey, have you got a cigarette,
Right,
bud?
right.
Oh, but what if you're targeted a little bit differently, and it's someone who appears to be rushing directly for you across the parking lot? Maybe
Yes.
you're unloading your groceries into the car.
Yes.
No words have been spoken.
Right.
Do you become the instigator if you go into your tape loops? To what extremes are you going to go, again, to preserve your distance and to make him go away?
Well,
how do you deal with what you think is more
I'm not sure I have any very good answers.
Yeah, it's tough.
You're going to have to get off the line of force. If he's coming at you, try to step to the side. You might yell out, stay away, get away from me. I can't help you.
Okay.
And see if that's any kind of deterrent.
Hey, I need some money. My car broke down.
Sir, I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry. I can't help you.
$5? Come on, $5.
I'm sorry, but I cannot help you. Have a nice day.
Now, there was a recent incident. This just happened. I got the video on this, and you may have seen it. This was a anti-Israeli protest. The police had the two sides separated, the pro-Israel and the anti-Israel, and they're, of course, exchanging unflattering comments, as you might imagine. And the video I saw showed an individual on the anti-side shouting accusations, and apparently there were a couple of accusations shouted back, although it wasn't clear what he was saying. The next thing that happened is this guy, you can see him, he just charges across the street and tackles this guy. And I think the guy he tackled hadn't said anything. I think
Sure.
it was a woman
He was
standing
just
next to him and
Right.
said all the unflattering things. Well, anyway, as they were on the ground, a gun came out, and this guy who came in the front seat got shot in the abdomen. Now, I'm not sure about the shootee, but the shooter has been charged.
Yes.
Again, I don't like to render opinions after watching just a short video. I don't know enough about the incident to really have an opinion. As you know, I provide expert testimony in cases, and I have to, under oath, I have to provide opinions, and I have to be very careful that before articulating the opinion, I have taken in all the information, not just watched a 5-second video and decided what was wrong. But in any event, he's been charged. Now, those charges may be dropped. I don't know. But as I watch this, I'm thinking, well, this is a physical assault. He was tackled and down on the ground. The guy, it looked as if he had an arm around his neck, although it wasn't entirely clear. Could have been dangerous. Okay, what could the guy have done? I don't know. I'm not sure you could have done anything to prevent that, except don't be there.
Yes.
There's an election year, and I know some people listening to this may have very strong opinions about these various divisive issues. And let me assure you, I do too. And maybe over some adult beverages later on, we can discuss this. But that's not the point. Anytime you're in a place where people are highly volatile, and we're on just the simmering edge of violence, and you're carrying a gun, you're in a bad place, and you need to get out of there. And you need not be there to begin with, but you need to get out of there. This would apply to sporting events.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Where there's alcohol involved, there are people with guns, and there are people who are very emotionally involved. It's a recipe for disaster. And since we go armed, I go armed everywhere, that's not a place you'd probably find me. Nor would you find me at some kind of political event, like a rally, for instance. Your favorite political candidate's in town, and you want to attend a rally, you show your support. I get it. I watch it on TV. That's as close as I get. I don't want to go over there. And this is going to get a little controversial, events that have a religious overtone. We're seeing a lot of violent events taking place in, I want to say churches, synagogues especially, of course, but particularly the flamboyant, high-profile churches. These attract unstable people.
Yes, yes.
They're attracted by events like this. Bars, same thing. Talk to a bartender sometime. Bars are the gathering point for all the world's most miserable people. That's where they end up. They're miserable, they're unhappy, they're unstable, and sometimes they're violent. And so you carry a gun around, not a good place to be. As you know, I don't drink, but when you do, when you enjoy a cocktail now and then, my suggestion is you confine it to your home, and if you have a cocktail, make it the last thing you have before you go to bed.
Going back to what you said about churches and meeting places and emotional people, many times you will have someone who's mentally deranged or emotionally
No doubt.
unable. And another thing that you've written about, and in fact, viewers, if you're not aware of John's DTI quips, we will put a link on the show notes to them because I'm a regular follower. But
a couple times a week, I feel a lecture coming on. I can't help myself, So
and it's wonderful. They're pithy and they're funny, and they always have a quote from somebody else in them, and then John tells us what he thinks about the world.
Yeah.
But it's probably a couple months ago that you were talking about what I would almost call a blitz attack. And you did mention, then you start reading the news reports and you realize just how frequently just straight up blitz attack, no approach, no subtlety, bam, and there it is. And so I'm wondering, Lord, how do we recognize this coming first? What do we do? It's sort of like your protester who got sideswiped, but what's our recommended response? I mean, we may not even speak a common language.
Right.
What do we do?
nothing. There's nothing you can do. I don't really have a very good answer
I'd
there.
rather not die in place.
Right. This particular incident took place at EWR, which is the Newark Airport. In New York City, there's LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark. Those are the three airports that service that area. And I have flown in and out of Newark many times. I've been in that very spot where it happened more than once. It's an airport.
Yeah.
And yet, city officials unwisely allow homeless who have absolutely no business in the airport. They're not flying anywhere. They have no business there. They allow them in the airport, and sometimes they get past TSA, into these so-called secure areas. And I'm not exactly sure where this particular incident happened, but the attacker and the woman who was stabbed they didn't know each other. Why he selected her, heaven knows. And if that were me, I suspect the same thing would have happened. I never would have seen it coming. And a person with a knife, you'll be stabbed before you know it. Stabbed or cut, and you may take some defensive actions after that. But I'm not sure I have a very good answer.
Yeah.
And I tell you, stay out of sleazy bars, stay away from political events, stay away from all these emotional events. But I can't tell you to stay away from airports, can I?
No.
We have to go some of these places.
We might have to use public transportation. So how important is a shared language? Because we also we're a nation of immigrants. And right now we've got borders that are pretty porous. So our chances of encountering someone who is not from here, we don't share a common speech, a common language. We may not even share common gestures. We may not share the same value system.
Right.
Again, what do we do? What do we project? How do we physically send messages if we can't speak?
I think the best answer to your question is keep your head up and keep looking around. When they see that you're alert and looking around, they'll probably choose someone else.
Okay.
The people that are typically selected for victimization by mugging suspects and like this person are the people who are, they're walking along like this, not paying attention to where they're going. They got their head down. Those are typically selected for victimization. This is why, for instance, in our civilization, the two most dangerous places in terms of physical violence in our civilization, driveways and parking lots.
Oh, really?
Driveways and parking lots are the most dangerous places in this country. Why? Because people aren't paying attention. They're fumbling with keys and everything else. They're not paying attention. They got arms full of stuff.
Yes.
And car thief, in our society right now, car theft is way down. Because new cars, past the last couple of years, are fundamentally impossible to steal. When you don't have the fob, it's not going to start. So your brand new Cadillac Escalade sitting in a parking lot by itself is worth nothing. It's worthless.
Interesting.
They can put it up on a flatbed and haul it away. It still won't start. So while car thefts are way down, carjackings are way up.
Yes.
Because they know the only way to steal your car is to steal you too.
Yeah, they need you.
So the closer you get to your car, the more dangerous it becomes.
Okay.
That's why when you pull into a parking lot, get out of your car and get away from it right away. Get away from your car. When you approach your car, get in and get in motion immediately. Your safety is in motion.
Yes.
Get rolling. Do not sit in a car that's not moving, particularly in a car that's not moving and you're not paying attention. That's very, very dangerous. So probably the best answer to your question is keep your head up and be alert, especially in all places are dangerous. Some are more dangerous than others, especially those dangerous places. And and then, of course, the comeback is, well, I got 3 kids I'm trying to keep track of, 2 dogs, and an armful of groceries. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you can still keep your head up.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You're going to have vulnerable times in your life.
Yeah.
And do the best you can.
Yeah. So, you mentioned that it's an election year, but one of the things that's pretty cool about the network educational materials is it's got a long shelf life.
Yes. Oh,
and
yes.
So as we look forward into 2025 and forward, if you got, there's part of me that says interpersonal violence has always been interpersonal violence, and people have always certain are evil and bad things happen. Do you see changes coming? Even once we get past the election season, what kinds of things are you warning us and students to be aware of, to be alert to in the coming months and years?
Quite frankly, I'm not optimistic.
Okay.
I'm going to make no predictions about the election. That would just get all kinds of unkind comments. So, no matter who wins the current election, I don't see any reversal of these trends we're seeing in the immediate future. Okay. Some of this stuff could turn around. Right now, we have an entire political party that caters to criminals. We have pro-criminal mayors. We have pro-criminal, a little more than communists, pro-criminal chiefs of police, pro-criminal prosecutors, who themselves are a little more than criminals. They have no connection with decent people because they're not good. They're not decent. They're sleazy criminals, and I hate to put it that way, but I don't know how else to put it. And they're in high office, and their agenda is what we're seeing as our society, especially these metro areas, goes downhill. And despite, these media myths, violent crime is at an all-time high.
Yes.
It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse before it gets better. When we plan on living through this, we have to be all that much more alert. We have to look at our lifestyle and more critically than we ever have, what kind of people are we associating with? What kind of places are we going? Our mode of transportation, whether or not we go armed, what kind of guns we have with you. When I became a police officer in 1970, I carried a 6-shot revolver, and when I wasn't working, what we called off-duty is an incorrect term. When you're a police officer, you're always on duty. Sometimes you're on watch, and sometimes you're off watch. So on the times when I'm off watch, I carried a 5-shot snubby.
Sure.
Today, I'm surely not comfortable carrying a 5-shot snubby, although if that's all I had, I suppose I would. But we're all carrying now 17 shooters. They're bigger, more powerful guns. When I go anywhere, I've got a M4 in the back seat of my car. That's something I never worried about before. But especially when I travel, I'm away from home now. my M4 is not far away. It's a little inconvenient to carry it openly, but of course we have pistols on us all the time. I carry at least two. And this, you know, from a standpoint of 30, 40, 50 years ago, wow. Well, yeah, well, you're really going overboard. Back then it would have been overboard.
Okay.
Today is not.
Okay.
Today is not. I entertain no delusions about immortality. But I've been shot. And I have shot people. I've been on both ends. I'm getting too old to get hurt.
Yes.
And so I'm going to take, and I encourage my students to take, what you calculate are reasonable precautions for living through the next day of your life.
Yeah.
And again, I wish I had better news. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope we'll all find ourselves in a utopia a year from now. But I don't see anything improve. No matter who wins the election, I don't see anything improving very soon.
It seems unlikely. And what core principle, what idea would you like us to take away, the network members, from sharing this conversation with us? What would you like network members to take away today?
Okay, I think this is the bottom line.
Okay.
And I'm not sure I'm going to articulate it particularly eloquently, but we have to strive to be good people. We will fail over and over, but we have to strive to be good people. We're all far from perfect, heaven knows, but we have to be good people. And we're going to fail, but we have to continue to strive. You get knocked down 7 times, you get up 8. I think that's the key. I think bad people are going to be bad people, and changing their environment doesn't change that. These people were bad people in Mexico, or they're bad people in Venezuela. They come here and they're going to suddenly change. No. They're going to be bad people here too. And that's one title, that I want to avoid. We all make our share of mistakes, don't we?
Yes.
But we have to be good people, good and decent people, and strive to do that in spite of our failures. Continue to strive to be that. I think that's our duty as citizens, and I consider that my duty as a human being to try to be a good person, however you define that. And so, as you said quite correctly, the time to think about this is now. Let's sit down in front of a mirror and have a serious discussion with your conscience about what we can't plan exactly, but what's my blueprint here? When something terrible happens to someone else, as your lawyer, what am I going to tell you? Get out of there. But you may say, well, no, I think I have an obligation to help other innocent people. To what degree are you going to do that? How do you think you're going to do that? And are you willing to endure the consequences? That's the kinds of things we have to ask ourselves. What kind of person are you going to be? As your instructor, I say as your lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, of course, but as your instructor, I'm always going to tell you your best interests are served by, number one, don't be there to begin with. Get out of there when things start going downhill. And do not involve yourself in things you're not involved in. In other words, be very good at minding your own business. But that conflicts with the moral makeup of some people. Yes. So you have to find wherever your compromises are going to be, you have to set that up. What's a good word? You have to have a blueprint, at least of what, we can't predict exactly what we're going to do, but we have to have a blueprint. And again, I think as as good citizens, again, we have to strive to be good people. And in the end, the bacteria win anyway.
Well, and I'll tell you what, thank you for all the years that you have helped us draft good blueprints, John.
Well, thank you.
You have made our lives ever so much better.
Well, and you guys are wonderful for this network and all the good things you have done, and it is my honor and privilege to have been a small part of it.
Mine too. Thank you so much.
Love you, darling.